Hi, welcome to my test kitchen. My name's Celeste. Today we are going to make dark fruitcake in honor of the Christmas holidays. I don't know if you remember making Christmas cake as a kid, but I know when we made Christmas cake at home as a kid, it was a whole family operation. Because there's so much fruit and so many nuts and it's such a dense cake, my dad had to be there to help stir it all in. So it was all day project making fruitcake. Hopefully we'll cut the time down for you and make it easier using your Bosch mixer. So like all good recipes, the first thing we did was preheat our oven to 300 degrees, and then it tells us to line a baking sheet or a baking pan with parchment paper. But instead of doing that, I'm going to use the single-use disposable oven-proof paper loaf pans to make our fruitcake in. We'll make it easy to store, we'll make it easy to take off, and you don't have to worry about keeping your pans held hostage to fruitcake for any extended period of time. And it's a pretty way to gift your fruitcake as well. So the very first thing we need to do is mix our fruit and nuts in a large bowl. So here we go, we have a very large bowl. And we're not going to mix them like too thoroughly, we just want to put them in a bowl, get some flour in them so that they are dredged and won't float to the bottom of our cakes. So we need sultana raisins, 3 cups, and 1 cup of currants, which always looked like, really tiny raisins to me as a kid. And I'm just going to break up any lumps that are sticking together so that you don't get a whole mouthful of currants in one bite. We have our candied glazed cherries. We have pecans, that's the name of them. Pecans and walnuts always kind of look a little bit the same and are pretty much interchangeable. We have our mixed candied fruit. It's always nice and sticky. Had a spoon here? No spoon, okay. Our candied pineapple. And what else do we have? Oh, dates. Can't forget the dates. And ginger. All goes into the bowl. Now the recipe calls for 3 cups of flour. I am going to use some whole wheat flour in that. I'm going to use a cup of wheat berries, and I'm going to run them through my mill, and it should give me about 1.5 cups of whole wheat flour. And this will just add a little taste and a little more texture to the cake, and perhaps a little more oil. So I will, what do I want? I think I want it fine. And here we go. There we have our whole wheat flour. Now we'll just pour that over top. And the rest, my 1.5 cups of everyday garden variety white flour. Quickly grab a wooden spoon. You know what? I'm going to take just a wee bit of this flour out so that I can mix my soda and spices in together, and then they will incorporate into the cake batter evenly. So just dredge the fruit a little bit, just so it gets a nice coating of flour on it, and it'll help it stay afloat in the batter. All right, so now I have a wee bit of flour left, and I need to mix in my baking powder. Always get baking powder and baking soda mixed up. Salt. Back up my dishes. Cinnamon, mace, ginger, and nutmeg. Or sorry, that's not the nutmeg. It is cloves, right? And use ground cloves, not whole cloves. Whole cloves will never break down, and it's not pleasant when they get stuck between your teeth. All right, now I'll just grind some nutmeg into this. One of the people I'm making this for likes nutmeg, so I'm being very generous with the nutmeg. All right, so before I add that, I need to cream my butter and sugar together, and then we'll add the eggs. So to mix the fruitcake, I will use the dough hooks because it's going to be a really stiff, dense batter. But to cream the butter, I am going to use my cookie paddles. And I need exactly 1 cup of butter. So this would be about 1 cup of butter. And I'm going to cut it up as I put it in, just in case it's a little hard. And even if I were to put this whole thing in, as soon as the paddles hit it, that's a lot of strain to put your machine under, and it's not really necessary. If you just cut it up a little bit as you're putting it in, no issues. And garden variety butter knife will do. Add my sugar. Actually, I'll stop this. I'll scrape the butter off the bottom so it'll help the sugar incorporate. All right, now that our butter and sugar mixture is light and fluffy, I'm going to add eggs. The recipe that we're using calls for 6 eggs. It's very similar to a recipe I found in a very old cookbook, and the recipe actually reads, use 8 eggs, 10 if you have them. So I'm going to split the difference between those two numbers and use 7 eggs. And I'm going to add them one at a time, and I'm going to crack them in a bowl because we've already got butter and sugar in here. So in case you ever get a bad egg, you don't want to ruin all the hard work you've done already. So break them into a separate bowl and add them one at a time. Turn the mixer back on. Just going to scrape down the side before I add the rest of the eggs. Butter, no matter how well you get it all mixed up, has a tendency to like to crawl up the side of the bowl. I suppose it would have been a wise idea to add my bowl scraper, but I've had my Bosch for so long it didn't come with a bowl scraper, and I always forget to use it. If you have a mixer at home with a bowl scraper, don't hesitate to use it. It will stop all the stopping and starting and having to clean off the sides of your bowl. one more solid scrape. Add the last two ingredients, which will help turn this into a dark Christmas cake as opposed to a light Christmas cake, because right now the batter is looking pretty light. All you have in here is brown sugar and eggs and butter. You could use shortening if you prefer, which is a margarine or lard or some other. I wouldn't use a liquid oil, but anything that is solid would. I've often been tempted to try it with coconut oil, but I haven't done that yet. I think it would make it far too greasy, because coconut oil, once you add heat to it, gets very, very liquid very, very quickly. All right, okay, and now I will add my 1/3 cup of brandy, my 1/3 cup of strong cold coffee. You could use espresso, or you could even put in espresso powder if you preferred. And then I need 1/4 cup of blackstrap molasses. Now, I could have added that to the brandy and the coffee, but what I'm going to do is just eyeball it, because molasses is very, very sticky, and I'm going to turn this on so that it doesn't stick to the side of the bowl. Pro tip for getting your molasses out of the jar is I had this sitting in about a cup of boiling hot water, and I put it in, I let the water cool off, then I boiled the water again and did it again. So it is going to come out, it's going to be as slow as molasses in January, but it is still going to come out a lot quicker than, molasses in late December. So all right, so got that mixed up fairly well. I'm going to take my batter whips out, or my cookie paddles out of here, sorry, and make sure I get all of the stuff off. Just want to stick. There we go. And I will switch over to, oh, gotta get all the last bits of goodness out of there. Switch over to my dough hooks, because this is where the hard work is going to start. This is where my dad would come in. So I'm going to add the last of my spices that I have mixed up and flour. Actually, I will put them in here. And I just need to stir it until the flour is completely incorporated. And then we are good to start putting our fruitcake into pans. Clean off the hook. And I will just wipe my hands so I don't get everything else mucky. There we go. I don't have to, but I am going to spray these with cake release just to make it a little easier, so to get the paper off later, so you don't wind up with a bunch of paper in your fruitcake. You shouldn't. There's enough oiliness in there that you should be fine, but I always like to err on the side of caution. So this is going to be very dense. And when you look at the ingredients, it seems almost impossible that all of this fruit and this very little bit of liquid and very little bit of flour will stick together into a cake. But it will. So you want to fill about 3/4 of the way. It'll rise a little bit, but it's very dense, so it's not going to rise a whole lot over the sides. So here's one. There you go. You want to make sure your batter is fairly even in the pan. All right, I wound up with 6 fruitcakes. Now I'm going to put them in the oven, 300 degrees, for 2.5 to 3 hours until a cake tester comes out of the center clean. Hi, welcome to my test kitchen. My name's Celeste. Today, we're going to make mulled wine while we're waiting for the Christmas cakes to come out of the oven. First thing you're going to need is a good pot, a burner or cooktop of some kind to cook it on, and a nice bottle of wine. It doesn't have to be a super expensive bottle of wine, just a Cab Sauv, a Shiraz, a Zinfandel. I personally prefer red because red just says Christmas to me. So I've got my burner on medium-low because I don't want to boil the wine. I just want to steam it, get it warmed up, have it taste lovely. I personally like a little bit of juice with it, so I was added a little bit of cranberry juice. That should be good. And just for a little kick, I'll use some of the leftover brandy from the Christmas cakes, because that's always good too. You can measure if you want, but make yourself look, all fancy like you know what you're doing. Just start throwing things in. You're going to want some spice, but you don't need a ton of spice. So 1, at the very most 2 star anise. I like to use the whole spices because I don't like to have to sieve it out afterwards. I will use a couple of pieces of candied ginger, again, so I don't have little stringy pieces of ginger in it. And if you really like ginger, you can chew on the ginger. If you don't like ginger, it's big enough to see that you won't, you can avoid it if you want to. Come on. 2, we'll put 4 of those in. A couple of cinnamon sticks. Again, if you use the whole cinnamon sticks, you don't have to try to sieve out the raw cinnamon. You can just pull out the sticks and use them as a garnish on the side of the glass. I'm going to add a little dried lemon peel to it. I am going to add citrus to this as well, but I just find it just gives it a little bit more flavor. So I'm not going to use a ton because, again, you don't need all that grit in your teeth. All right. Oh, right. And you can use sugar, you can use honey. I like maple syrup, so I'll put in some maple syrup just to sweeten it up a little bit. I had a friend tell me a story about his grandmother making mulled wine, and she'd take a mug of red wine, stick the poker in the fire, and stick the end of the poker in her wine and call it mulled wine. So this probably has a little more flavor, a little less charcoal in it, but whatever works for you. If you're out camping and in the winter, if you're one of those people who likes winter camping, it's a quick and easy way to make some mulled wine. Stick a stick in the fire and stick it in your glass of wine. So I've washed my citrus and I'm just cutting it whole. You could use mandarin slices if you want it. I will stick that in with my wine, and I will do the same with a lemon. Don't need the ends. So you let this simmer on your stove top until it starts to steam a little bit. Give it a taste once in a while. Make sure that it has the flavor you're looking for. Always put in less spices to begin with than more, because it's easy to add more later on and add more flavor, but it's really difficult in an entire bottle of wine extra if you've got too much spice in there. So for easy peasy lemon squeezy mulled wine, that's all you need to know. Hi, it's been about 2.5 hours, just a little better. It's time to take our Christmas cakes out of the oven. I stuck a cake tester in them and it's come out clean, so we're ready to go. There we go. 6 lovely Christmas cakes. So once they're cooled, I'll add a little donut sugar to the top of them, maybe a piece of holly, a cherry. It makes a great gift, good for eating. It's great if you go hiking. Pack some Christmas cake with you. When you get a little tired, have a piece of Christmas cake. It'll keep you going for the rest of the afternoon.